Imagine yourself in this situation. You're racing down the track, desperately trying to keep the wheel steady to avoid crashes and gain speed. You see the red shells flying towards you, and you dodge them by an inch. The distinct sound of the final lap creates a frenzy and adrenaline inside your body. You hear laughter. You watch the television, waiting to see who will finish line first. Luigi loses, and you win. If you can relate to this story, then chances are you've probably played Mario Kart on Nintendo Wii. Shamelessly, I will admit that I love to indulge playing video games on the Wii, PlayStation 3, Xbox, and even old original Nintendo. You name it, I've played it. Most teens, including myself, as well as adults, frequently play or have played video games. According to a national survey conducted by Pew Internet and American Life Project, 97% of young respondents play video games on a regular basis. Of that 90%, their games of choice were diverse, and most of the favorites were Guitar Hero, Halo 3, and Dance Dance Revolution, which is personally my favorite. Now that we know people all over the country, young and old, play video games, we can wonder how they influence society, and more so, do video games cause violence? I would like to argue that video games do not cause violence. It is the individuals who cannot distinguish between fantasy and reality and right and wrong that cause violence. Society is often misled by psychological studies such as Jody Dill's video game violence paper that suggests video games are bad news and promote violence. Video games are fun, provide families with a chance to gather and play a variety of games. Nintendo Wii has become increasingly popular and gives players an opportunity to interact and be active, as well as promoting fitness and exercise. Instead of criticizing video games, society should examine the individuals playing them. People who play video games have an equal chance of becoming violent to those who do not play video games. An online article by Lester Haynes, attorney Jack Thompson, is trying to prove the link between Grand Theft Auto and a 2003 murder of 3 police officers in Fayette, Alabama. The 20-year-old perpetrator said, "Life is a video game. Everybody must die sometime." This statement shows that Moore displays aggression and an inability to think for himself. Thompson, the attorney for the defendant, declared that the video games taught Moore everything he needed to know and kill, and might as well handed the gun to do it. This obviously is a pretty bold statement to say that Thompson made that Devin Moore killed the police officer just because he was a Grand Theft Auto fan. And it just goes to show you that video games are often used as an outlet for reality for some people. The individual must know how to separate reality from fantasy. Producers of video game are nowhere at fault for creating such a game. The game must be played by only those who can mentally distinguish between the game's fantasy and reality. This goes for teens. This goes for all video games and not just violent ones. Teens do not drive around pretending to be Luigi in the Mushroom Cup on their way to school. Just because you can beat Venus Williams in a game of tennis on your Wii doesn't mean that you should enter yourself in the U.S. Open. Nor do you validate killing someone because you do so while playing on Grand Theft Auto. Emily Durkheim, an early sociologist, explained deviance and crime through what is known as the functional perspective. Durkheim was concerned about a condition in the individuals where norms and values are weak and serious conflict or absent. This can be explained as the individual lacks in judgment and loses moral values that deviance and violence occurs. Psychological studies can often be biased and misleading to society. If an individual cannot separate what is real from what is fantasy, they should not play video games. This is where parents must see how their children and teens react to certain video games and monitor their use. Video games usually contain some type of rating. This should be monitored closely by parents. Don't let your young children play the violent video games until they're able to be a little older and realize the things in that game shouldn't be performed in real life. And just overall, video games should not be the blame for violence, and individuals and their inability to tell the difference between right and wrong is the cause of violence. Thank you.